Welcome in. This is our famous TikTok live where we answer all your questions about special education. So just put them in the chat. Let us know where you're from. If it's 4 million degrees. I'm so glad it's finally August, since it's felt like August since, I don't know, May in Texas. Like we definitely need some rain. So, okay, Alicia, I'm going to let you go with, it says more like, yeah, sometimes the TikTok puts stuff in there to distract you. Okay, I'm not distracted. All right, the great, thank you. Good, the great Alicia. Tell us what they want to know.
Oh, the people have so many questions.
Do they?
They do. Are you ready for one?
I'm ready.
Okay, my son is ID, and he is in a life skills class, and he goes to regular classes for specials. The school is saying that he cannot be in band because he is too disruptive and loud. They are fine arts or theater. I think it is because they want to just split the two pairs between two electives. Can they do this?
So we do what the law says and what the data shows. So I would say, first of all, does he play an instrument, right? Does he play an instrument? And when you're looking at that fine arts credit, we look at band, which is good if you play an instrument. But if you don't play an instrument, it's going to be problematic. Choir, which I'm not usually a fan of for kiddos with disabilities because they have to hold still while somebody's doing the C sharp and the B flat and all the things. It's not quite like, Dancing with the Stars, or what is it that when I was little, the Shooting Star, whatever. It was something on TV in the 60s or 70s. So it's not like a music competition. I like theater arts because there's so many different things that kiddos can do. They can be in the front, they can be in the back, they can be making props, they can be working on lighting, they can be the manager, they can be the director. It's so many options for them. But when you look at band and when you look at choir or even theater arts, those are all Universal Interscholastic League competitive entities, and you have to try out for your position. So I take great issue with kiddos that have their day in life skills and then their day in general ed, because what that means is that we did not provide the parent a continuum of service options, because general ed and then a self-contained class called life skills, there's many steps in between. So I would wonder why that student can be in resource or supported in science and social studies in gen ed.
Perfect. And then what do we do when we get an IEP and it has no goals on it?
You look for the closest shredder, because an IEP with no goals is not an IEP. An individualized education program must at minimum have one IEP goal. Special education, specially designed instruction, requires that we work on goals that target the deficits in the student identified disabilities and or their medical needs. When you get an IEP document and there's no IEP goals, it's fraudulent, it's invalid. And so I see that sometimes. It really is just a glorified 504 document. But I would go back to the committee and say, what is the impact of their disability? What are the needs across settings from bell to bell? And what are the schedule of service minutes that we're going to provide the student with an identified disability to mitigate the impact of his disability?
Perfect. And then can there be a long-term sub in a life skills class because there's still a vacancy?
Oh, there can be subs everywhere. There's subs at the sandwich shop. Did I say that? I love subs. If your sub is a certified special education teacher that can implement all the students in a self-contained room IEP with fidelity, then that is an amazing long-term sub. So when somebody's providing an educational product to your child, you can look them up on your state a teacher lookup website and see what their credentialing, licensures, or specialties are. We love subs, and if they're a special education teacher who is certified to teach that class, then she certainly would meet that criteria. When you look up a teacher's licensure, also it will tell you the years that they cover. Sometimes it'll be early childhood, EC, elementary school, maybe a specialty in another language, but make sure that you look that up.
Okay. And then my son will be outplaced. Can I push for the dyslexia school, not just another in-district school?
What does outplaced mean? I don't know what that means.
I think they're going to be like an out-of-district placement.
For dyslexia?
It doesn't say. So
Yeah, so out-of-district placement almost always is going to come solely because the district, county, or city was unable to provide them an educational benefit. So I would want to know from the great Tina, and I like your color wheel there, what caused the out-of-district placement? Is it something that you're choosing? Is it a mediated settlement? Is it an agreement from you and the school? Have any little more information?
All right. If the IEP says service providers by sped teacher, but the school says para can provide it, is that true?
Well, I would say to the school, bless your heart, don't break the law. I feel like that should be a t-shirt. So certainly a paraprofessional is allowed to deliver specially designed instruction in the United States of America under the supervision and watchful eye and leadership of the special educator that has already worked with the student with a disability and begun to implement their IEP goals. So in isolation, a para could not deliver special education. And yes, somebody's asking if this is swamp water. It is. I had it sent in. It's going to make me look really... This is what happens when you're old. You drink things this color to make you young on the inside. Everybody on the monitor is wanting to get a glass of that, right, Gina? You want me to send some of this to you? It's good stuff. It keeps you flossing. Alicia is like, I think it came from Louisiana.
Okay, what about retention with kids with IEPs and is on the spectrum, but the school never discussed the retention?
So retention has nothing to do with 504s, general ed, or special education. Retention is a decision between a parent and an administrator. It is not an IEP committee decision. It's not an ARD committee decision. It's certainly not a 504 committee decision. So the only time in my history that I've ever had the parent consider, because it's not my decision, the possibility of retention would be a kiddo that's in kindergarten or first grade. And that is if they have just not come anywhere close to meeting those standards. I did have one kid one time who missed 89 days of school. I think he was a 7th grader because he had severe epilepsy. He was in Texas Children's Hospital. He wasn't in school. That was the only time that we had a case where I was pro-retention for a kiddo in school. When you look at retention, you have to look at the student is going to be removed from their graduating class, and what is the intention of the retention. If you can use that time to make up skills that weren't worked on or delivered, then I'm for that. But I think parents think that another year in 4th grade will make the child's reading difficulties go away, their attention difficulties go away. That's not been my experience. Again, it's not my decision. It's between the parent and the administrator.
Perfect. And can you... Hey, Jude.
Hey, Jude. Oh, sorry. You didn't know us.
Can you move a child from mild moderate to moderate?
Okay, can we just talk about this? There is no such thingeth. That's Old Testament. There's no mild, moderate in IDEA. So I think I understand what you're saying, but I mean, if that is not subjective and bias, I don't know what is. If you have a student that needs a self-contained setting to be successful, then I'm on board with that. But I hear those terms thrown around: moderate, mild, moderate, severe, mild, moderate. I don't really know how a human can quantify the acuity of a child's disability. I certainly understand if a child needs full self-contained for behavioral needs. I certainly understand that I have kiddos that need 2 adults to 1 student based on the severity of their disability. But I just, let me ask you this, Alicia, because Alicia is an amazing past teacher in the great state of Louisiana. How is that a phrase that came to be in Louisiana as an educator?
Oh, like mild, moderate, severe?
Yes.
Because technically I was a mild, moderate sped teacher. Um, so the way that they distinguish that in Louisiana is mild moderate would be any child whose needs could be. This is going to be so illegal. I just need to say this so that everybody's listening knows this is not right. Okay, but in the district that I worked in, mild moderate was the kids that could attend our public schools that was not our specific school for special needs kids in like wheelchairs and walkers. So those were the mild moderate kids. And there was one school that we have in the district that are for our severe kids that are in walkers and wheelchairs.
I'm just going to light a candle right now. We're going to say a little prayer. Dear Lord, forgive us. And so when I met Alicia, she said that like that was, I don't want to say normal, but if you're in a school district and you've been taught wrong, lean in. Y'all been taught wrong. So, I mean, that's so biased and discriminatory and subjective. But students have disabilities, and then we educate them based on their unique circumstances. That's an Andrew F. That's a U.S. Supreme Court ruling. So, I'm so glad that our unique circumstances is not predicated on whether or not I can stand or if I'm going to mature over the summer. Because I think Christine and I confirm there will be no maturing of Karen over the summer. Did any of y'all mature over the summer? I just... No.
I tried to preface with that.
I thought we were going to order some mature over the summer. I think you can order that from Temu. I think it just comes in. It's going to be a few days. It's on back order. Maturation, saturation. Maybe we could just have that. On that note, I'm going to have to drink more green stuff when you said kids in wheelchairs go somewhere else.
I'll read a question while you do that. Can I make an IEP for my homeschooled SPED student?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what private schools do, right? They make an individualized education plan, a program. The difference is you probably don't receive federal funds at your house. But moms and dads do that anyway. Whether their kid has a disability, they give them structure, they give them support, they give them interventions that will be helpful. But, I mean, I think as much as you can provide a child at home, high structure with a disability, you're probably going to have more gains.
All right. And how do you keep a 2E kids learning when they won't put them in gifted?
So 2E, for those of you that are new, is twice exceptional. It has been the hardest families that I have ever advocated for in 27 years. When you have high cognition, high IQ, you're going to struggle in those other areas. You're going to struggle with language. You're going to struggle with emotionality. That's just the way the human pie is cut up. And the kids that I served over those years ultimately didn't stay in public school because there's just not enough to occupy their crazy, fast, supercharged brains.
Okay. Does there have to be a SPED teacher in the classroom in a general ed classroom where 2 SPED students are present?
So, if a student, you can be a special education student in a classroom and not be receiving schedule of service minutes in that content area, right? You could be in a general ed math class and be a special ed student and not have an educational need in that content area. So important when we write the present levels that we look at the child's disability impact across content areas. What happens at 8 o'clock? What happens at 9? What happens at 9:27? And that you write all that out when you're developing the IEP. And then in those places we talk about their educational need. But just because a child has a disability, they don't need services in every setting. I have a kiddo who's amazing, and he is in high school, and he is in life skills, and he has an intellectual disability, and he is in honors choir with no support. So we look at a child's unique circumstances and the totality of the impact of their disability.
Okay, and I came across a really good question when my phone accidentally scrolled all the way to the bottom. How can I request a non-public setting for my child They tried self-contained, and he's extremely aggressive.
Sure. So you'll look at your state, reach out to your DOE or your SEA. DOE is your Department of Education, your state education agency, and ask for a list of their approved out-of-district placements. Unfortunately, because of the cost of these entities, there's not many. I mean, we live in a state of confusion. We live in Texas, which sometimes is the state of confusion. We have 605,000 students in Texas on an IEP, and I think the out-of-district placement is a document that's 5 pages long and maybe 5 locations on each page. It's very hard to find these locations, but you want to sit down with the committee and say, it appears you're not able to provide my child an educational benefit. We need to look at consideration for out-of-district placement at the expense of the district.
Okay, and I'm just going to preface with, I don't know what this question means, but you might, because you're the boss. Are students with IEPs and students with WEPs allowed to be in the same classroom?
WEPs, is that wonderful, exceptional people? I feel like that's what we are. I'm not sure what a WE. Children are allowed to be in a room together. Let's just clear that up. Children are allowed to be in a room together. So, sometimes I think we're back in 1970 with segregating children. But if there's a meaningful benefit, right, we educate students with disabilities to the maximum extent possible alongside of their non-disabled peers with supplementary aids and strategies until they're not successful.
Perfect. If a parent requests an IEE, can the district call an IEP meeting and say no to the request?
So that's a really, really, really good question. So here's how you request an IEE. You would notify the IEP committee that you are in disagreement with their evaluation. This is when I always say I disagree with your evaluation or a section of your evaluation. I say that I disagree with the contents, the data, the conclusion, the summary, the font. No, I don't say the font. And I will be requesting an IEE at the expense of the district. That's just to notify the IEP committee. Then I will send an email to the executive director of special education for that city, state, or county, include myself as the advocate, and say, hey, Mrs. Smith, executive director of Delaware Amazing School District, this is my client Gina. We disagreed with her child's evaluation from your district, and Gina is requesting an IE at the expense of the district, and I'll let you two take it from here. Because the parent requests it from the executive director. The executive director will either grant it or deny it. Of course, almost always, they will grant it. They do have the legal right to deny it. If they have decided to deny your IEE, it means that they have to take you to due process hearing and explain to an independent hearing officer why they're not going to grant your $1,500 IEE, and they just spent $20,000 taking you to court. So you're rarely going to be denied.
Perfect. And then I had a really good question, but it looks like there's a second part and I can't find it. So let's just read the first part. Maybe you'll be able to answer. I have a transfer student. Their IEP says separate day school. My school is a 4,500 student public school. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing maybe she's asking for advice.
So when a child transfers, whether it's between districts, between counties, between cities, between states, that incoming school has to honor the conformity of the IEP for 30 school days, whatever it says. I remember I got a client one time coming from, it sounds so southern to say, up north. He was coming from up north, and he was supposed to be at a psychiatric unit. And so we said to the parents, we don't have that. And she's like, okay. And he did fine. It was just, it was a very well-funded East Coast school district. So if they have to be at an out-of-district day placement, you have to put them in an out-of-district day placement. You can't bring them into public school. That would be a violation of the conformity of the IEP. Now, during those school days, those 30 school days, the incoming school district has the legal right, onus, duty, and responsibility to see if there's any needed updated evaluations and if you can match services. So there are a few services that don't exist in other places. So there's an amazing service called APE, Adaptive Physical Education, for those of us that don't mature. Womp womp. But there are some states that don't have that, like Kentucky. You know what, Kentucky? That might be the reason you didn't win the Super Bowl. And I think Georgia doesn't have adaptive physical education. So you might be in a state where they don't actually provide that related service, but that would be very rare. But the setting is not a related service. So the setting you have to match.
Perfect. And then this is my last one, and I'm going to toss it over to Christina.
Did you see Christina's new office? Look at her. Look at all of y'all. I mean, I just feel like we need to get Bonnie and Shannon a plant. Bonnie and Shannon do not have plants. You know, my plant here is doing so well in this summer heat. I just put a little Fabuloso on my plant, and it's doing great.
I would have killed it, even though all right. IEP wording, RBT 1-to-1. No backup in place if said RBT is absent. Suggestions? Well,
I suggest that we get something that makes sense. So if you have a one-on-one, whatever the need for that one-on-one, whether it's nursing, para, a shadow, or as we say on the East Coast, a para-pro. I love that. They have a para-pro. I love that. We don't have those in Texas. We just have the suck it up. That's what we have. Get it together. That's what we do in Texas. But if you have a one-on-one, then certainly that human that's providing that service may not be there for all 180 days. You should, by law, have somebody else trained to step in if that person, I don't know, goes to the dentist, wins the Powerball, whatever you guys are doing. Yeah.
All right. What are your top tips for a good IEP meeting?
Come fully prepared. I mean, I am stunned at how people are not prepared, including other advocates. I don't hang out with other advocates. I only have amazing advocates, but you don't show up you're not there for a conversation. You show up like you would show up in court. So if you had somebody in court, they walk in with binders, exhibit books. You know, we call that evidence. We make decisions in IEP meetings based on one thing, evidence. In school, we call that data. So only two things really drive an IEP meeting. What does the law say? And what does the data show? So as an advocate, as a parent, you should be showing up with your own data anyway. You should have your questions outlined from, I don't like your mascot, not very happy about your font, and this PLAF is pitiful. So if you don't write down your questions, you can expect an unsuccessful IEP meeting. It's worse than going to the grocery store without a list.
All right, and then Tiffany says, thank you for all you do. From your classes, I was able to navigate submitting a state complaint. And I know there was a part two, Tiffany. I know there was a part two. And it resulted in a corrective action for all students with IEPs on campus.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. That's such good news. Way to go. Good job.
All right, so speaking of, what is happening tonight in 34 minutes? 34.
Is that when the swimwear modeling contest starts? No.
Yes.
So we are in a series on Special Education Academy. Every page of the IEP, what you don't know will penalize your student. And so, you know, one of the things that I do and our team members do is that we know what's missing in the paperwork when we get it. I always say is the paperwork's not right. We can't expect for the product to be right. And so we're going through literally every section that could possibly be in your paperwork so that you know what to look for based on your child's age, based on their needs, based on the requirements by state and federal statute.
Excellent. Okay. The SPED teacher at my son's school does not put notes in their IEP progress report. It just says a percentage. What should I do?
So, I mean, that's not illegal to put a percentage in the IEP progress report. That's why it's important that you guys ask, because it's back to school. Just let them know, Dear Buttercup, at the end of every grading period, just wanted to let you know that I pick up the raw data collection sheets that are used by special educators to populate the IEP progress reports. So the IEP progress report is a electronic document that the special educators have populated after they worked with the student with a disability. So I want those original data sheets. They're called raw data collection sheets.
All right, very good. User asked, I filed a state complaint for SPED violations that they were found. The IEP is still not being serviced.
You got to file again. You got to file again. I have a client who's ridiculously amazing, and he files all the time. If you want movement, you got to make some noise.
That is very true. All right. Can school districts do away with their communication for their students on IEPs?
Do away with communication? So, one of the 8 pillars of IDEA is parental communication and connection. Parents are a critical part of the school providing a successful IEP for their student. So, to deny communication would be denying communication with the IEP team, as the parent is a stakeholder under IDEA. So I would have a problem with that. That would be a violation of their procedural rights. Because they're allowed to. I can give you another answer, which probably wouldn't be that nice, but they're allowed to keep them, unfortunately.
Then Casey asked, how can I request a non-public setting for my child? We've tried self-contained and he's very aggressive.
So you have to sit down at the table and say, the data confirms he's unsuccessful here. Schools have limitations, right? There are kids that need full-time nursing. There are kids that need to be in a very sort of ICU setting. There are kids that need to be in high behavioral units that certain school districts don't have. And so public schools have limitations. And so if they can provide an educational product at your campus or in the district, then do that. But there are some kids, probably I have 2 or 3 annually, that are going to be at out-of-district placement. I got a text late last night that one of my kiddos got into an out-of-district placement, which we've been trying to get for 2 years. And that's what he needs. And so you're looking at, what does this student need for the next 36 instructional weeks to be successful?
And then when you don't agree with reported progress and your data doesn't match up, what should you do?
So I would say it looks like you have a reason for, showing me this data. Where did you get that from? How did you come to acquire this data? Because when I work with a student on same said skills, there's a totally different outcome. I think it's imperative that parents show up with their own data, that you know what your child's reading level is, that you know what your child's WCPMs are. Every one of you should know what the child's WCPMs are. What are their words correct per minute? Whether they're 7 or 17. Reading is paramount. It impacts everything. And we just move kids along, and we sit in meetings and somebody says something and we just all say, amen, sounds good. So you have to prove your position. I have no doubt that you're telling the truth, but sometimes there's not enough information to make informed decisions. That's why your PLAF needs to be puffy, pristine, and prescriptive, and as detailed as possible. But, when you dig into that dialogue and you ask them, where did you get the data? Somebody else told me, Christina told me, because she emailed Bonnie, and then Bonnie talked to Gina in the hall. That's not good data. So you need to make sure that it's data that's appropriate, that should be in the IEP document.
Then, can a child be suspended if the behavior was indeed a manifestation of their disability?
A child can be suspended, yes, and yes. So when we look at a manifestation determination resolution meeting, an MDR, we have 2 questions to the committee. One, is this action by the student with a disability a result of their disability? Is it a manifestation of their disability? And or is it because we didn't implement the IEP? If the answer is yes to the first question or the second question, if there is a consequence for the behavior, it should be much lower than what would be for general ed students who can understand and communicate and articulate the student code of conduct. But even if it's a manifestation of their disability, it doesn't mean that they don't get a consequence. What's really important is that, a consequence, whether it's for me or you, is to change the behavior, right? So if I have a child with severe autism and, I was aggressive because I was excited with somebody, you making me go to another campus for a week doesn't change that behavior. So it's very important that whatever we decide as a committee to do as a response to that mitigates the impact of their disability, and that it's, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, legal. I had a school district, I won't tell you where, in Miami, and a child that he was emotionally disturbed, and these two teachers sort of cornered him in the stairwell, because that's a good idea, and he just pushed past them. And the next day they had a manifestation determination meeting. The paperwork, everybody said it's a manifestation determination of his disability, and they sent him to out-of-district placement for 6 weeks. And guess where the out-of-district placement was? Say it with me. His living room. Your living room is not a vendor for your state for out-of-district placement. So I had several conversations with them in my gentle way. Then I talked to their attorney, who was not as lovely as I am. And then I had my friends at the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights get involved, because it was retaliation and it was discrimination based on disability. And they took care of it.
Excellent. So Tina is asking, my son should have speech on his IEP, and the new out of school day placement, they just don't offer that service.
Then it shouldn't have been an agreed upon out of district day placement, or you should have agreed to remove that service before he went there. The out of district day placement has to be able to be a vendor with the state and provide like services. Now, certainly if they didn't provide music therapy, that would be fine. But speech is not only an eligibility, it's also a related and instructional service. So that would be a problem for me. So if they don't provide it, they're welcome to bring in a private speech therapist.
I have a minimally verbal kindergartner. The school says I need to provide the device.
Did they? So I would provide them the congressional act called the Assistive Technology Act of 1998. It's a congressional act. It happened congressionally. And it says that individuals with disabilities in America, whatever age you are that need assistive technology, it has to be provided to them, the device and the services. So if your child had a $50,000 electric wheelchair and you didn't want to haul it out of the back of your minivan every day, the school would have to provide one for them. So whatever that student out of the back of your minivan every day, the school would have to provide one for them. So whatever that student needs to be to make gains on his IEP, related services, supports, equipment, all of that, the district will be providing.
Excellent. And then follow up to that, if the IEE confirms that the student is on the appropriate language for their AAC and the district wants to change it, are they able to change the language?
Okay, so you would change it based on data. Everything. So it's not, I want Chinese and Bonnie wants Mexican food. This is not, we're not asking when we want to go to lunch. So if a child's modality is augmented, we don't just change it. That doesn't happen. So what does the law say? What does the data show? Show me the data.
The show me state. How can a parent prepare the new teachers for their incoming students? You can't make me giggle.
Well, you would provide them a thing I call the Zac Pack. And what that is I have parents just print out like a big 4x6 photo of their cherub, and then on a piece of paper, just write a narrative about your amazing kiddo. This is Billy. He's 8 years old. He is busy. He really likes science. His favorite thing right now is da-da-da-da-da. My husband and I look forward to working with you. Here's my husband's email. Here's my husband's cell phone. Here's my email on my cell phone. He won't be scared if you call his dad, but he'd be terrified if you said you're going to call me. Do you need a copy of his IEP? Do you need a copy of his accommodations? Do you need a copy of his 504 plan? Do you need a copy of his individualized health care plan? If there's anything that I can do to support you this year, we look forward to working together. And Just wanted to let you know that at the end of every grading period, I'll be picking up the raw data collection sheets on his agreed upon IEP goals.
Okay, this is the last one for me, and then I'm going to toss it over to Shannon.
There's so much tossing. I feel like are we trying out for like the World Games or something?
Should we lob?
Lob. I like lobbing. That's very Texan.
We're gonna lob it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna lob it over in a minute.
Yeah.
All right. I have a 3-year-old with Down syndrome, and I'm having a hard time getting the school to allow me to enroll them.
Ah! So 3-year-olds aren't enrolled in school unless they have an IEP. So if you haven't done the evaluation, you need to get that done. So the school has a duty and an obligation to assess children with suspected disabilities. Your child doesn't have a suspected disability. They have a known disability. You want to make sure that you get tested in all areas. And then once that testing is complete, I'm sure that they'll meet eligibility and they can start school when that's concluded. Okay, I think the lob happened, but I don't know who the lob recipient is. I think it's Shannon or Bonnie. They're the lobettes.
What if the school has not trained the student's para for his behaviors for the coming school year?
How do you know that? And that would be my question. How do you know that, right? So, when I train people for state filings or mediation or federal filings, the first thing that investigator, that hearing officer, that attorney is going to say is, how do you know that, right? I would say to the school, we're about to start school. Can you tell me the day the para was trained on my student's needs? And then wait for that answer. If the school identifies that they haven't trained anybody yet, let them know that he'll not be able to come to school because that would be unsafe for him, to please notify you once the school has trained them. And then based on the number of days he misses because you didn't train them, then there would be compensatory time. I'm just going to go back to Sandra. It says, I'm the one with a 3-year-old with Down syndrome. They told me they don't enroll until they are 4. Sandra. You say, silly rabbit. Tricks are for kids. So at 2.5, you're going to have a child tested for ECSE, Early Childhood Special Education. So I would email them back and say that my advocate, Karen, said that your pants are on fire. No, don't say that. Just say I reached out to my advocate and she said that was misinformation. Please let me know when I can come in and sign notice and consent for full testing for my student. So Megan has asked 87 times, and I'm going to read it for you. What do you do if you disagree with the state complaint findings? One question, and OCR doesn't enforce the IDEA. So OCR enforces components of a student's IEP. IDEA is a federal entity, so they actually do address IDEA, 504, Title II, all sorts of things in ADA. If you disagree with state complaint findings, you would have to file in federal court, which is a large amount of investment.
Okay, someone asked, how do they get your help? A couple people have asked that.
Well, I'm already dating somebody. Oh, no, that's not what they mean. So you can just email us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com.
Christine says, how long do teachers have at the beginning of the year to learn a child's accommodations?
None. They have none time. The time is none-ya. None-ya. The day the door opens, you have to be able to serve every student. Every student. So the email is advocate. Gina, if you can put that in for our friends. It's advocate@specialeducationacademy.com.
What do you do if the district refuses to assess because of lack of interventions at the school?
I would ask that I would say, I understand that you're denying my child testing. Please provide that denial to me by close of business and a prior written notice.
Can my son have a break from speech therapy without getting rid of the IEP?
If I was your advocate, I would say no. You don't need a break from special education and related services. You get to the level where you're no longer in need of them, but there's no data to support a break is beneficial for kids with disabilities.
My son needs one-on-one. How do I get this? I've been fighting for 3 years and had to homeschool.
So you probably need representation if the acuity of his disability is that impactful, because you have to. There's a very specific way that you have to navigate. You have to remember, you guys, that our kids with disabilities are the most expensive child in the school district. Just period. My son was, your kiddo is, right? And the more that they need, the more expensive they are, right? So unfortunately, sometimes kids are not seen with the same value if they have a disability. That's unfortunate. But if you believe your child needs a one-on-one, every child in America is allowed to participate in public education, have an IEP, whether they're in a psychiatric unit, in intensive care, whether they're participating in the criminal justice system, or whether they're enrolled in a school district in America.
Do 504s require manifestations as well?
Yep. A manifestation determination meeting is this behavior, is this act a result of their disability? So that's a really good question.
Do you trust schools' evaluations?
I trust everybody till I don't. I trust that school evaluators are doing what they believe is ethically right and what they've been trained to do. One of the things that we train on is evaluations and what evaluations get what results. So one of our advocates just got an evaluation back from, I won't tell you where, Alabama, and it was 8 pages long. That's just offensive. It's offensive. My order for Chick-fil-A is 8 pages long. A child's evaluation, if they're a little bitty, should be 20, 25 pages long. Any kiddo that's in school, their evaluation should be 30 to 60 pages long. So when I see an evaluator who's done I don't know what, it is offensive. I try not to be offended, because you don't do good work for parents when you're offended. But if I feel like the evaluation was incomplete and wasn't the appropriate instruments to use for the student with that disability, then I ask for an outside evaluation or somebody else from the district that's the lead to do new evaluations.
How would you work on self-advocacy goal for a problem-solving, choosing accommodations in middle school classes?
What? Choosing accommodations is not a self-advocacy goal. Is that what it said, Shannon? Here's the thing. I don't need kids to have self-advocacy goals. I call baloney sauce on that. Why don't we have adults do that, right? That's a skill. Advocating for yourself is a skill that most adults don't have, right? But we think 8-year-olds with a disability should have that. So why do you want them to advocate for themselves? Usually because you're making them beg for you to implement your IEP or their 504. And I'm not having that. Anytime that's happening, I'm totally filing with the OCR. The only person responsible for implementing the IEP or the 504 is the school, not the student. Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Yeah, and somebody's in California, they're looking for an advocate. We have all of our advocates that we have are trained and advocate from coast to coast. So you can reach out to us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com.
If the school says they don't do raw data collection sheets after every grading period, what do I ask?
I'd ask for them to send their federal funds back. And in fact, if you just give me the federal funds, I'll drive them to the White House. No. At the end of your IEP meeting, when they go, could the principal look up for a second? And they say, we need Mr. Principal or Miss Principal to read what? The assurances. The assurances. Oh, we assure you that Billy Smith, and then we assure you of this. Do you know why they read the assurances? Because that's an agreement to receive federal funds. Annually, under Part B of IDEA, every state is required to deliver a plan to the U.S. Department of Education of how they will meet their IDEA goals. So you should probably reach out to your Part B provider and say, we got a mess here on aisle 14. I need you to help me clean it up. Because it's the only thing we do in education, whether it's special or not, is that we instruct and we measure. We instruct and we measure. So the fact that you're not going to measure a student that has a disability, that's a problem. Because if you're audited from your state, they're not asking for your opinion, they're asking for your paperwork.
ask one more, and then I'm going to pass it on.
Is it me, or does everybody have a flower for their picture? I'm just so impressed. Like, I feel like, well, Bonnie doesn't. Shannon doesn't. We just...
Do you provide training to schools?
Absolutely. We do professional development from C to shining C. We prefer to do the professional developments like in a food court in the mall near Talbot's. But yeah, we do professional developments. Oh, the rapid fire lady started. Okay.
Oh, hang on. I got one more.
Okay.
One more before the rapid fire lady. My son's new teacher says she only works on IEP goals on Fridays. Is this accurate?
Okay, rapid fire owner, Alicia. I think I have to drink some more swamp water.
Oh my God, you and the swamp water. Wah, wah, wah.
It's good for you. I bought it from HSN. Anything on HSN, you have to buy it.
Ma'am, are you done with the water so we can do the rapid fire question?
Yes. Landline has just like a landform. Get that? Okay, sorry.
Ma'am. All right. Dyscalculia diagnosis, no one in the state has any education on how to educate a child with this.
Is that a statement? Is that a question? It's a pretty broad statement. Here's the problem with dyscalculia. It's not a special education eligibility under IDEA. While I understand IDEA talks about it, it's not one of the 13 federal eligibilities. I found that my kiddos that have that, or dyslexia, or any of the DISs, also usually have an SLD, a specific learning disability. So I would go back and ask for a full evaluation diagnostically to include all 7 Gs.
All right. I love all the 7 Gs.
I love them. And they stand for gangster. Did you know that?
Right. I knew that. I filed a state complaint against my child's school. It was determined that my child gets compensatory time.
Yay.
We have since transferred schools. Can the new school provide the services?
So therein lies the problem, Buttercup. The violation, the guilty party has to provide the compensatory services. Now, I just had a family move from Washington to Georgia. They're a few miles apart. And the compensatory services are going to happen via Zoom. The student had reading deficits, but still be paid for by Washington. So if you can get the criminal school district to pay for that, that will happen. However, the new school wasn't the violator, so they are not on the hook for providing that compensatory time.
All right.
Due to something is not a thing, love. So the school has to educate your child for the entire instructional day. This day shortening thing is not a thing. Additionally, schools are not responsible for implementing the IEP if you reduce the day. So if you can't instruct my child for the same number of hours the other students have, then we need to look at out-of-district placement at the expense of the district.
You know what? These people don't know how much I love emojis. They're just not sending them, Karen.
Where you guys, she has emoji-itis, and she's not been vaccinated for it, so please put in an emoji.
That way I know you're asking a new question. All right. How can I come to work for you? I'm a 15 years master's special education teacher, and I feel I need this change.
So you don't come to work for me, but we will train you to be the most amazing special education advocate there ever was. So we have different levels of training and support on our website, specialeducationacademy.com, because there's 7.5 million children with an IEP that need an advocate. And if you want to refer people to us, just have them email advocate@specialeducationacademy.com.
Perfect. My child, and I just put the website and the email in the chat. My child was diagnosed with an SLD in reading. School said he doesn't qualify for an IEP. Is that...
I just stop. Alicia, stop making up questions. So he met eligibility for special education, but we're not going to special educate him. Lord, there's a fire. So here's what I would do. I would ask for a facilitator to come in and have a facilitated IEP. So that's somebody from the state that will come in and hopefully knock some sense into somebody's head with a small, soft pool noodle.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. Okay, this one says, how do I get owed services? They offered one time over the summer, then told me the AM wasn't an option, and now services are over. What do I do when services are owed from the 2022-2023 school year?
So you want to do everything in writing. So I would say, please let me know the plan to deliver the balance of the compensatory hours owed to my student. You have to stop begging and start requiring.
Yes, and then how does somebody refer a parent to you?
Same way. Advocate at specialeducationacademy.com.
This one's a question we get a lot via email. What law can explain the cap of class sizes? I currently have 18 students in my SPED middle school class.
Doesn't exist. There's not a law for capping classes. You could have 30 kids in a class that had dyslexia and be able to manage them because that's a general ed need. You could have one child in a room that needed 3 adults. So there are no caps. There are best practices, which are imaginary. Best practices are not, you can't print them out. We think that people should have sense. What I do know is special educators have always had obscene caseloads, and it's terrible.
I'm not going to get sidetracked. I'll tell you later. Just remind me. Okay, in the 45-ish monthly plan, is that just videos or live sessions?
It's 47. It's both. So we have over 200 hours and 2.5 years of weekly trainings. So on the weekly training, which is every Tuesday at 8 p.m., unless I win the Powerball, but I don't play, so I'm probably not going to win it. We educate on the federal law. We do series on the federal law. At the end of that, we open it up for questions, and we answer everybody's questions. So a lot of people that are school-based members are members of the academy. They don't come on live because they don't want their schools to know that they're on the academy, and I appreciate that. But all of the videos and the trainings are archived. So you'll get at least 4 a month if there's 4 Tuesdays in a month. If there's not 4 Tuesdays in a month, I don't know what happened to that. It's like if some reason that we have Christmas Day on a Tuesday, we wouldn't have it. But I think we had, what did we have on a Tuesday? We had July 4th. But it's amazing, and it will jack you up. And Gina, unmute yourself. Tell us about how amazing the academy is.
The academy is absolutely amazing because even if there's a specific area that you have a question, you can go right to those videos and just watch those. You can start at the beginning of maybe a series of 10 different videos. You can watch them in any order you want at your leisure, and then you can also watch them live as they're happening.
Yes. Thank you, Megan. And the other thing is that it's everybody. We have superintendents, we have teachers, we have parents, we have Democrats, Republicans, cats, dogs, everybody. Everybody's in there. And then in the chat, people are resourcing each other through the entire thing. So it is the best money you will ever invest in your child with a disability.
I love how you said thank you, Megan, because she was in the chat, and then Gina got confused, like, wait, my name is Gina, not Megan.
Yeah. I'm always talking to 85 people. Gina gets it. She is a first-year Karen second language learner.
Okay, so do you need me to do my spiel?
We didn't let Bonnie say anything.
Hey, Bonnie.
Hello, everyone.
So I just want to give you some places that we're going to be. I know these are proximity, but if you're in Houston, we're doing a special needs resource fair on Saturday, August 26th at Lakewood Church in Houston. So Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas, August 26th. I will have a sponsor and a vendor, and all of our advocates will be there. So if you want to come and ask us questions and bring us snacks, and you can bring those salt and pepper shakers that you bought me, that'll be an amazing resource fair. Then September 13th, we're doing a training in Conroe for dyslexia parents, and we can get you that information. And then we're also going to be a sponsor through the Down Syndrome Guild of Dallas, Saturday, September 30th, for Pete Wright's law training in Dallas. It's amazing. So we would like to all see you and do, the TikTok videos live with y'all. So come on down if you can.
All right. And then for anybody wanting to join the Academy tonight, she does have a pinned video on her page that has a coupon code that you can get a 15-day free trial. Just make sure you follow all the steps so you can get logged in for tonight. And then let's get... now,
Alicia, now we're all sad. We want the Alicia voice that does that. Come on now.
All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to www.specialeducationacademy.com. You're going to click on the training tab, and you'll see to the right there's a big square that says the Academy. You're going to click on the Academy. You're going to fill in all of your information, yes, including your credit card information. And then at the bottom, there's a blue button that says have a coupon. You're going to click on that, and in there, you're going to put the coupon code TikTok Live in all caps. That's T as in Timothy, I as in Indigo, K as in Karen, T as in Tall, O as in Oliver, K as in Karen, L as in Levi, I as in Indigo, V as in Victory, and E as in Elephant. You're going to put that in there, all caps again, and you will get a 15-day free trial. And again, if you need videos step-by-steps, just check the pinned video that I made on Karen's TikTok page.
We like that voice. And if you know Alicia, that is so opposed to how she ever talks. But we love it. We're like, do it again. So we love you guys. We're back to school. It's August 1st. Joel just started already. Remember, this is the time to be on top of your special education needs. Most of you guys crescendo through the year and then you're mad at the end. Get in front of it now. And yes, I'd be happy to come to DC. I think that's like 10 minutes from Houston. So, anyway, if you guys need something, let us know. Advocate at specialeducationacademy.com. Remember, we get it right for the child and we get it right a lot. We get it right for everybody. We'll see you guys in the next training.